In the heart of a small African village, Zuri faced a choice that would change her life forever. Her daughter, Amina, was all she had left, but the money they needed to survive seemed impossible to earn. So, when the opportunity came to secretly sell her breast milk as yogurt to schoolchildren, Zuri didn't hesitate. One evening, her brother Juma confronted her, his face full of worry. Zuri, are you really willing to risk everything for this? What if it's not enough? What if they find out? Zuri stood by the doorway, looking out at the moonlit village. I don't have a choice, Juma. If I don't try, I'll lose Amina. I can't let that happen. Her voice trembled, but her resolve was clear. Zuri's decision set off a chain of events no one could predict. As whispers spread through the village, questions about morality and survival collided. Could Zuri's determination and courage save her family? Or would the weight of her secret destroy everything she loved? In this tale of sacrifice and betrayal, Zuri's world teeters on the edge of ruin. In the village of Kalungu, nestled between the sprawling hills and lush green fields, there lived a woman named Zuri. Strong and resolute, Zuri had always been a protector, not just of her own children, but of her community. Widowed at a young age, she had raised her daughter Amina with unwavering devotion. But in a place where tradition ruled and survival was a daily struggle, Zuri had come to realize that sometimes love required sacrifices that went against every moral boundary she once held dear. Zuri's brother, Juma, was her closest confidant and a man torn between modernity and tradition. While Zuri embraced change and found new ways to provide for her family, Juma struggled with the village's sacred customs, fearing the consequences of stepping outside their ancient rituals. He had always feared Zuri's fierce independence, her willingness to break rules for survival, no matter the cost. But now he had no choice but to support her in whatever way he could, even if it meant condoning something that went against the grain of their community's beliefs. The conflict began when Zuri's financial struggles reached their peak. With the harvest season failing and her savings drained, there seemed to be no way out. Amina, now 10 years old, had become a beacon of Zuri's hope and motivation. But despite Zuri's best efforts, the village was not kind to a single mother with no means of providing for her child's future. And one evening, Zuri overheard a conversation in the market. A local vendor, Mirembe, who had always been a bit of an outsider, was quietly discussing how she had turned breast milk into yogurt, which she secretly sold to the children in the local school. The kids loved it, Mirembe claimed, and it was a well-kept secret. Until it wasn't. Zuri's heart raced. Could this be the solution she had been searching for? She knew it was risky. The village held a deep-seated belief in purity and natural ways of nurturing, especially when it came to a mother's body. Selling something as sacred as breast milk would be considered taboo, even scandalous, and the consequences could be severe if the secret were to get out. But desperation clouded her judgment, and if this meant providing for Amina, then Zuri would take the risk. Zuri's plan was simple. She would sell her breast milk as yogurt to the local school kids, just as Mirembe had done. The villagers, driven by their love for their children, would buy anything to nourish them. What Zuri didn't anticipate was the rapid spread of the gossip. Soon, her secret was out, and the stakes grew far higher than she could have ever imagined. Juma, having caught wind of his sister's actions, confronted her one evening. Zuri, what are you doing? He demanded. Are you really willing to risk everything for this? What if it's not enough? What if they find out? Zuri, pacing with worry, stopped and faced her brother. I don't have a choice, Juma. If I don't try, I'll lose Amina. They will take her from me. I can't let that happen. Juma looked at her, fear in his eyes. He knew what this meant, not just for Zuri's future, but for their family's standing in the community. You may lose more than you think, he warned. As Zuri's choice begins to unravel the fabric of her life, it soon becomes clear that the village's moral compass is no match for Zuri's desperation. The deep-rooted cultural values that had once united the villagers now stood as a barrier to her survival. Could Zuri's fierce love for Amina save her from the inevitable consequences, or would the weight of her secret destroy everything she had built? Um, the village of Kalungu, nestled in the heart of Africa, was a place where time moved slowly, bound by ancient traditions and the rhythms of the earth. The people of Kalungu believed that the land, the wind, and the trees held spirits, ancestors who guided the living through every trial. These spirits, who watched over the village, were said to be the keepers of wisdom, punishing those who strayed from the customs of old. Among these customs was the sacred role of motherhood. It was believed that a mother's milk was not only nourishment, but also a spiritual offering, an exchange between the physical and the divine. To sell breast milk, an act that violated this sacred trust, was considered unthinkable. Yet, Zuri, a widowed mother, found herself at a crossroads where survival trumped tradition. Zuri's daughter, Amina, was her entire world. After losing her husband to illness, Zuri had done everything she could to raise Amina. But poverty had a way of creeping in where love and effort fell short. With the harvest season a bust and no work to be found, Zuri faced a future that felt darker with each passing day. The community, though tight-knit, was harsh when it came to matters of personal survival. And without a husband's support or the land to farm, Zuri had no means to provide for Amina. It was during a market day that Zuri overheard a conversation between some of the village women. Mirembe, a newcomer to Kalungu, had found a way to make a living by selling breast milk yogurt to the children at the local school. The children loved it, and the money was enough to sustain her family. The idea seemed revolutionary, even risky, but it also felt like a lifeline to Zuri, an opportunity to give her daughter a better future. But the whispers that followed Mirembe's unconventional business were filled with judgment. The elders of Kalungu, keepers of the village's spiritual customs, believed that selling breast milk was an affront to the spirits. It was said that the gods had given mothers milk as a gift, not to be bartered or sold. Violating this sacred act would bring shame and perhaps even divine retribution. Zuri's brother, Juma, had always been her voice of reason. He was a man caught between the village's old ways and the encroaching modern world. When Zuri shared her plans with him, his face darkened. Zuri, are you really willing to risk everything for this? What if it's not enough? What if they find out? But Zuri's desperation was stronger than any fear of tradition. I don't have a choice, Juma. If I don't try, I'll lose Amina. I can't let that happen. The village, however, was built on trust and community, and secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. As Zuri began selling her breast milk yogurt in secret, the tension in the air thickened. There were too many questions, too many suspicious glances. The elders, gathered under the sacred baobab tree, began to speak in hushed tones. They knew something was amiss. The baobab tree, an ancient symbol of wisdom and endurance, had been the silent witness to generations of decisions, both good and bad. Zuri couldn't help but think of it as she took her first step into the unknown. The tree's twisted branches seemed to reach out to her, as if calling her to account for the choice she was about to make. And then, one evening, as Zuri prepared a new batch of yogurt for the children, the unthinkable happened. A small, delicate piece of her mother's necklace, a gift passed down through generations, fell from her neck and landed in the soil beneath the baobab tree. It was an omen. The ancestors were watching. What Zuri didn't know was that her decision would soon tear the fabric of Kalungu apart. The gods, it seemed, had a plan of their own, and Zuri's actions would lead to a reckoning that no one, not even she, could have predicted. Zuri's secret was becoming harder to keep. The extra money from selling breast milk yogurt allowed her to provide for Amina, but the village was buzzing with rumors. One afternoon, Zuri overheard two women whispering about her, calling her actions unnatural. The guilt began to weigh on her heavily. She had broken one of the village's most sacred taboos, and the fear of being caught grew with each passing day. Her brother, Juma, confronted her. Zuri, this could ruin us, he warned. The elders are already talking. What if they find out? Zuri's desperation flared. I'm doing this for Amina. I don't have a choice. Just when Zuri thought she could keep things under control, Ibele, an old friend and teacher, began to suspect. One afternoon, Ibele confronted her quietly. Are you really selling milk to the children? The suspicion in Ibele's eyes was unmistakable. Zuri's heart pounded, but she tried to justify it. I don't have a choice. Amina needs this. Ibele's voice softened. There's always another way. But Zuri knew there was no turning back. The truth was spreading, and soon the elders would find out. The tension grew, and Zuri's worst fear began to materialize. Her actions would bring shame, and there would be no forgiveness. The village gathered beneath the ancient baobab tree, where the elders convened to address the growing whispers. Zuri stood before them, her heart pounding in her chest. Her secret was no longer safe. The accusations were now open, and the villagers' eyes were filled with judgment. Ebele, once a friend, now stood as a witness, confirming what Zuri had hoped to keep hidden. I've seen it with my own eyes. Zuri has been selling milk, Ebele said, her voice trembling. Zuri's gaze met the elder's eyes, and in that moment she saw not just anger, but the weight of tradition. The spiritual balance had been disrupted, and the community demanded justice. The chief, his voice like thunder, declared, You have betrayed our sacred customs, Zuri. The spirits will not forgive this. As the consequences loomed, exile, shame, and the loss of her place in the village, Zuri made a choice. She spoke, her voice unwavering. I did this for my daughter. I did what I thought was right, but if this is the price, I'll pay it. Her words echoed through the gathering, and the elders, for a moment, were silent. But the shock came when the chief, after a long pause, spoke. The spirits are watching, Zuri. Your sacrifice may have saved you. The village, still reeling from Zuri's revelation, saw the consequences of her actions unfold in the days that followed. Though the elders had initially called for exile, the chief, moved by Zuri's courage and devotion to her daughter, chose a different path. The spirits are watching, he said, and they see your sacrifice, Zuri. Instead of exile, she was given a chance to make amends by proving her commitment to the community through service and humility. Zuri's heart lightened, but the true transformation came when she realized that her journey had not just been about survival, it had been about love, sacrifice, and understanding the deeper meanings of her culture. She no longer saw the world in black and white. She understood the weight of her choices and their impact on those around her. The community, once filled with judgment, slowly began to accept her back. Not as the woman who broke their sacred customs, but as a mother who fought for her child's future. Zuri worked hard to restore her reputation, helping the elders with rituals and teaching younger mothers the sacred value of milk. In time, she found peace, not in wealth, but in the wisdom gained from her struggles. Moral lesson: in African traditions, the balance between tradition and survival is delicate. Love and sacrifice may challenge customs, but ultimately it's the intention that guides the spirits. In the end, compassion and redemption can heal even the deepest wounds. As Zuri's story unfolds, we're reminded of the fine line between survival and tradition. Her choices challenge us to question the lengths we would go to for the ones we love. How far should we push the boundaries of cultural norms for a better future? What sacrifices are we willing to make in the name of love and survival? If Zuri's journey moved you, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a choice that tested your beliefs? Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful African tales and share this story to spark conversations in your community.